Aloha and welcome to Power in Partnership. In this series, we explore how to rekindle connection, grow conscious partnership, and focus on what matters most. My name is Amy Elizabeth Gordon. I am delighted and honored to be your host in this PIP series. And today I would love to introduce a dear woman named Diana Daffner. She's joining us from her Florida office, whereas I'm here in my Hawaii office, and we are crossing the miles across the way. Diana, if you could take a moment and introduce yourself, that gets the camera on you and we get to meet you.
Well, hi, Amy Elizabeth, and everyone who's listening. I'm Diana Daffner, and my husband, Richard, was hoping to be here with me, but was called away. And he and I are the authors of a book called Tantric Sex for Busy Couples, How to Deepen Your Passion in Just 10 Minutes a Day. We lead intimacy retreats for couples. These are vacation workshops. Our website is intimacyretreats.com. And we've been doing this for about 20 years.
Yeah. And I want to take a moment to thank you because I know you're packing up, getting ready to go on one of your retreats. Is it to Costa Rica this time?
It is. And when this is being aired, I suspect we'll be there.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. So exciting to think about that. So taking the time to join us as we explore the ideas of ceremonies for love, exploring peaceful passion. That's going to be our topic for our interview today. And as we start each of our intentional interviews, I invite all of us to just come back to the breath for just a few moments. So if you'd like to lower your gaze or close your eyes, really allowing oneself to settle, feeling that structural support of the spine. If your feet are making contact with the floor below, the ever-present presence of gravity holding us here. Inhaling deeply all that has already transpired today. And exhaling, letting that go. Inhaling any future plans for the rest of today. And exhaling, letting that go. And our third deep breath together, inhaling the sweetness of this moment right here, right now. And exhaling, releasing what's no longer needed in this moment. Diana, I invite us to rub our hands together and join in a bow as we honor the space between, that alchemy, that wisdom that we create. Inhaling and exhaling. Thank you, thank you. So, Diana, I would love to offer a few sentence stems just to kind of start the foundation of our interview today. The first would be for you to just have a moment to tune into yourself and reflect on, as I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing. How would you respond to that? As I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing.
As I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing excitement, looking forward to talking with you about the work that I do.
Yeah, I hear you're feeling that excitement.
And more than that, I'm experiencing a sense of, yes, that little meditation that you led, that's really the core of what we teach, for couples to be able to share that together in a slightly different way. But it excites me that we're on the same page.
Yay, yay. So let me see if I'm getting you. I hear that excitement of being here and that sense of yes, when we have that common denominator, that experience of perhaps using the breath or similarities in our work, and you have that excitement that this is work that you and your husband do with many couples. Am I getting you?
Absolutely.
Great. Is there more about that?
Well, we could go on forever about that, actually. Yeah, I mean, really, the intimacy only takes place in the present moment. So if I'm talking to you, looking at you, touching you, and thinking about what transpired earlier today or the last X number of years in my life, or what's going to happen later or tomorrow and endless days, I'm not really here. And if I'm not really here, how can I be really, truly intimate? I like to think of intimacy as into me see. And it's not to say that thoughts of the past or future are bad, they're fine. We like to find a moment when we can really simply be present with each other, where the love that we share has the opportunity to make itself known.
So beautiful. The love that we share has an opportunity to make itself known. Yes, that importance of the present moment. And you and I do share similar paths. I use the into me see quite frequently. In fact, I've probably already said it in this series. I love that image. For me, it really helped give a added dimensionality to what intimacy might be. So where I would like to be at the end of and you could share where you'd like to be at the end of your life or the end of your career. How would you respond to that sentence stem? Where I'd like to be.
Where I'd like to be. I'm kind of right where I'd like to be right now, actually.
I had a hunch you were going to say that. Yeah, that sense of I'm there. Yeah. So one thing I can do to help continue to be here, let's put it that way. How would you respond to that?
To continue to do my work in the world, to do my loving with my beloved husband, and to continue as being a devoted daughter to my 96-year-old mother. It's all about love.
Yeah, beautiful. I so see that in your smile, and I feel that through the internet connection. I had a mentor once share with me, love travels at the speed of thought. And I thought, yeah, okay, I get that but this whole technological world is really opening that up. And I can feel that as you talk about that sense of devotion, the devoted daughter for your beloved mother and your beloved husband and the people that you help in the world. I really feel that. So thank you.
And for myself as well, to remember to continue loving myself and giving to myself and doing whatever I need to do to keep that alive. So it is a balancing act. Right. In a sense, or it's balancing isn't really quite the right word. I think it's more like embracing all parts. Yeah, embracing all parts. I've been exploring this notion that balance is a tension between the opposites. And so in that sense, I don't know if balance would work in my terminology either, because to love myself is also to love the other and vice versa. They don't feel like opposites or that there has to be tension there. So in terms of that, what's one thing that you do to continue that self-love? Like, is there a daily practice you use or a particular something that you do on a regular basis to help you sustain that? Well, I do have a daily practice that sustains the love with my husband. Okay, we have a daily practice. For myself, it's really it's kind of an ongoing checking in. I'm pretty consistent about checking in. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? Which is it more important to answer that email or to go for a walk on the beach? Which right now feels more important. Not my head, not thinking about it, but which opens my heart more. And so, in a sense, that would be the daily practice that I do.
Yeah, I love that image of taking those. How many decisions do we make in a day? Thousands, right? Just we're endlessly given the opportunity to decide between, as you said, the email or the walk on the beach, and really not so much running it through on a mental plane, but to really drop in from an embodied response of which one opens my heart more, which one calls to me right now, and using that as a daily practice to continue to tend to yourself. Am I getting you?
You are. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, sure. So the next sentence stem, and I want to get to your daily practice with your beloved if we have an opportunity to do that. But before we do that, how would you respond to this idea of what matters most in the relational field? What matters most?
The first word that comes to me is love. I mean, love matters most. Mm-hmm. And yet that word itself, there could be whole dialogues on what that means. Is it a verb? Is it a noun? Is it a state of being? What is it? So, it's funny that you phrase the sentence that way. In our workshops and the intimacy retreats that we lead, I often share that what I hope to, what I'm doing at the workshops is sharing with with you, the workshop participants, what works for us in our relationship and why, and what matters to us in our relationship and why it matters. And that's really kind of the core of the way we teach, sharing from our own experience and what matters to us.
Yeah. So what does matter to you? If I can dive in there.
Me on that one. Well, I mean, love trumps all, in my book. I mean, it sounds simplistic, and there's a part of my head is kind of going, oh, well, that's so simplistic, But I really, in my life, love and being centered. I would add being centered, because love that is uncentered and off-centered and kind of wishy-washy out there without being grounded maybe doesn't have the power that we're looking for. So I would say what matters to me personally is being grounded, being centered inside myself, and being open to experience that love.
Yeah. I really hear that addition of being centered as crucial in terms of we can love, we can have these warm feelings, but without that sense of being grounded, being centered, it may just be more, I don't know, I got this sense of real flighty, real ungrounded, so to speak. So what you said really jumped out to me in terms of we need to be centered so we have the power that we're looking for. Could you speak a little more about that power that we're looking for, that we gain when we are centered, when we're in that loving space?
I'm not sure I said that. Did I say that? That power?
You did. I wrote it down.
But
I heard the word power. So
you heard the word power. That's funny, because it's not a word I'm sure that I use often. So when I'm centered in myself, taking it back to relationship, that's what we're here to talk about, and with Richard and with my husband, when we're together and we're each centered in ourselves, it's like another element arises, something magical happens when we're each centered. There's a blending, a connecting, a resonating that's neither him nor me, and it's even more than just a personal connection. It actually, there's that moment where it expands into something greater than both of us. It's really a spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, I appreciate your willingness to explore what that might have meant in terms of power, because what you're describing is that other entity, that sense of beyond you, beyond Richard, there's this power greater than yourselves. And it reminds me of that Rumi quote, and I'll paraphrase, but out beyond the field of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field and I'll meet you there. Those are my words. It's not verbatim, but just that sense of we are not me, but you are here. And when we come together, that co-creation, perhaps there is a power there, Diana. And I guess that's why it caught my ear, because my intention in doing Power in Partnership is to look at how do we get power from our primary relationship? How do we get that energetic exchange where we don't feel depleted, we don't feel overwhelmed, but, and again, maybe the word balance isn't the right word, but there's an equal exchange of give and take, receive and let go, and really tapping into a third power. So I'm really curious about that. Am I getting you?
Well, as I said, power is probably more your word than mine. But if I'm getting you, what I take from that is this sense of when we tap into that place where we're empowered, we empower each other, we're empowered, and we can take that love that we share out into the world. And so that's really is the power of the love that we make and the love that we teach, is that it's not just on a personal level, because when you are in that place in you and I'm in that place in me, something magical happens that people around us, our families, our friends, and people who are not around us, our neighbors, the other citizens of our country, the citizens of the planet, I believe we affect all of that.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. That in addressing that, that is the underlying intention of bringing together this series and getting this word out there and inspiring people to do the work of the deep love, because it's not just a selfish pursuit or having a good quality of marriage. It's that ripple effect. And for me personally, I want to be a force for good in the world. And as Harville and Helen Hendricks say from Imago Therapy, saving the world one relationship at a time. And that ripple effect that you just spoke to, I think is so, so vital. So thank you for that. In terms of the ceremonies for doing this, maybe we would start with your daily practice with your beloved Richard. Can we dive in there? And would you be willing to share about that, Diana?
Well, first of all, the whole concept of ceremony is kind of unusual for most people. I mean, people don't think of themselves doing ceremonial ritual, but we all do during the day. We have certain rituals. People have morning rituals, and they, whether it's their coffee or whatever that they have. And some couples have beautiful morning rituals where he brings her a cup of coffee or something like that. And all of that helps when you do something with intention. That's what creates ceremony, when you're doing it with intention, even if it's not the same every time. The teachings, one set of teachings that Richard and I draw from in teaching our classes is Tantra. I don't know if you have other people speaking on the series about Tantra, but Tantra is an ancient spiritual training from India, probably, although they didn't use those words as much as I know now, the first mindfulness training. Now the word mindfulness is very common or pretty common. We have mindful parenting and mindful breathing, which is really just about paying attention, being centered. I really don't like the word mindful because we really don't want to be in our thoughts. We want to be in our bodies, but that's the intention of mindfulness, is to be present and centered and grounded. And that's what Tantra was about, or is about. And it was not about relationship at all. That concept, though, of being centered in sexuality is what set Tantra apart as a spiritual training. Not all of the Tantric practices by a long shot involve sexuality, but those that do have been really translated into modern relationship skills in our current world, in our current life. And so in the morning, when Richard and I share a daily practice, it's a commitment that we call peaceful passion. And it's written about in our book, so it's not a secret. And what it is really, it is a sexual joining. We join together sexually. And it's sort of quiet and it's sort of still. It's not an active sexual movement or pleasuring, but it's joining together. But what's different about what we do than what you probably would read or hear about anywhere else is that we teach something called Tantra Tai Chi. Tantra Tai Chi is a movement program that we created, and it's very simple and easy. And there's a trilogy of acknowledging the centers of our body, not all the chakras, although that would work too. Wonderful daily practice would be for a couple to join together and kind of connect at each one of their chakras or each one of their vertebrae or, anything that's connecting and engaging the partners is useful. So in our case, we join sexually and we acknowledge it. We actually say the word sex to each other. We actually bring our awareness to that part of our bodies, that center. And then we bring our awareness to our hearts. Okay. And by doing that, and we call off heart. So we remind each other that we're not just doing a sexual activity, we're really blending in the heart. And when both of those are connected, we also open to a spiritual moment, and we call that off as well. And it's extraordinary how deep a connection this makes. And our commitment is to do it for 10 minutes.
On a daily basis, 10 minutes.
On a daily basis.
Let me make sure I'm getting you, Diana. Did you say that you take the time to connect with your beloved on a daily basis in the morning, I imagine, because is it a morning practice or any time during the day practice?
It could be done by any couple, whatever time works for them. We happen to do morning, but it's the time is irrelevant. It's that a 10-minute commitment. 10 minutes is probably more time than we spend trying to get off the phone with someone we don't even want to be talking to.
Right.
It's not a long time. And you may, know couples or people who have various ailments, physical ailments of some sort, and maybe every day she has to give him a shot, or she has to rub his back a certain way because these are medicinally required for their health. We would do that for our partner. So can't we take 10 minutes to be in love with our partner, to share that and to celebrate it?
Yeah. Oh, I love that invitation. 10 minutes. And I can imagine what that does to cultivate the positivity, the intimacy, the love in that space between. And there was some phrase you used, and I wanted to make sure I got it. Did you say we call off our heart? We call off? Say more what that means. I'm not familiar with that.
We actually use the words. We have a movement, and we call it the Tantra Tai Chi trilogy, where we do certain moves, and we actually, as we're doing the moves, instead of being in silence, we're naming the body center where our attention is going. So we're saying sex, or we're saying heart out loud, actually saying the words. They really could be any words. I mean, these work particularly well because it gets us more in our body. The point is to engage with your partner. If even with all these years of my own training with Richard, before Richard, I have a black belt in Aikido. So I was training rigorously for 12 years, trained every day in Aikido and meditation. And so I'm a trainer. With all that training and all my experience and years of meditation, if things go silent for a little bit, whether I'm sitting alone with my eyes closed, or even if I'm looking into the eyes of my beloved, it isn't very long before some thought kind of wafts through my brain, a thought, did I answer that email, right? That email on the brain, right? So that a thought comes up. It's what we do at that moment that matters, whether I'm on the Aikido mat, or whether I'm in meditation, or whether I'm in the arms of my beloved. It's what I do at the moment that thought arises that matters. And what most of us do, and most of the time we do, is we follow the thought. And before we know it, we're somewhere else. We're not in the present moment. And this can happen even looking into each other's eyes. And so when we call off saying sex and saying heart to each other, it's like a mantra. It brings us back to the present moment. It kind of short circuits the trip away.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful, beautiful. The appreciation I have for you sharing the details of what that's like, to actually name it, to actually be able to recognize it's not so much what the words are, but it's what mantra, what words will work to help the couple come back to the present moment, to be present with each other. And it so much reminds me of my experience being a mother of young children. And I just felt that they wanted everything from me all the time, that I was going to be swallowed whole, that they were going to be nursing forever. And I'd go to La Leche and they'd say, they won't be nursing when they go to high school prom, believe me. It's like, okay, so look at this slice of pie that I can give what I can give. And often even in the role of parenting, and I'm not sure why this is coming up for me right now, but that sense of, it's going to be too much. But if I could do 10 minutes of focused time, of drawing together, of being on the swing together, of taking that 20-minute walk outside, that quality investment then allowed my child to go off and do what he wanted to do, and then we would come back together. And I'm having that similar response as I'm hearing you share about this daily practice, this daily investment in, to me, what matters most, which is that primary relationship with my beloved, because without it, I wouldn't have the loving connections with my kids or my in-laws or my, to me, it feels so intricately entwined that to spend that quality time, for me, it helps antidote one of my own fears, which is I will be swallowed by the needs of others or the presence of the other. But to spend 10 minutes and then recognize that, we do go out and do our day. And I guess that brings up a question. I'm curious, if you ever travel independently of your husband, do you do this practice remotely?
Well, that's an interesting question. Richard and I don't do a lot of separate traveling anymore. I mean, there were times when in the past we have, but it's been a long time. We're really together most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a number of couples have asked about that. They'll come to a workshop, and then we find out that, this is their one weekend a month together, or, that one travels 2 months at a time. And there's a great need for practices that couples can do, and for teaching couples who are on the road separately. It's not my expertise, but I do know is that in this modern technology time with FaceTime and Skype and everything, that certainly makes it a whole lot better than it used to be.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, to be able to carry this tool and not have the excuse of, oh, we just don't see each other, we're on different schedules, we're traveling differently, but to be able to harness the power of modern technology. That's another theme that seems to be coming up in this series, which I think is helpful. I would love for couples to feel more resourced. And what you're offering up today, Diana, is one invitation to dedicate 10 minutes a day with the beloved to grow that loving space. So was there any more you wanted to say about that before we go on?
Well, yeah, in a way. And a lot of couples counselors and therapists will encourage a 10, 15-minute practice. Typically, it's to talk to your partner, because talking is very important. And my husband loves to talk, but purposefully talking intimately for 10 to 15 minutes, or telling me about his day that in his mind is already done and he really doesn't want to talk about, that was torture for him. He had no interest. When we discovered that sexual connection, that we could do a sexual connection and I would be happy, that we both could be happy, and that we both could become blissful, actually, made the commitment a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Thank you so much for saying that, because as someone who's been trained in the Imago therapy, teaching couples the intentional dialogue, striving to set those appointments with my own beloved, and it is so much about the talking. And I think that talking helps, but we communicate on levels way beyond words. And to actually have an embodied practice, to me, sounds delightful. And just that sense of weaving that in, because the dialogue can be helpful when there are certain issues to cover or to share appreciations, to build that culture of appreciation. But we really, I think, to fully grok, to fully get, to fully attune to another, there needs to be those other elements at play, particularly the embodied sense. And what I'm hearing is this is a sexual connect, even though it's not about pleasure, or it doesn't even sound like it's necessarily about a particular act or going through any motions. It's naming those parts, calling out, and joining three energy centers. Am I getting you?
Well, actually, it is a specific act. It actually is intercourse.
Oh, okay. I missed that.
I didn't say it, which is a little surprising because it's only 10 minutes. And it's a very unusual. It's a very unusual form of intercourse. Actually, the Tantric teaching is called Mindfulness, which is intercourse that's really more about cultivating energy. It's about running energy. It's about being, in original traditional Tantra, it would just be focused primarily on the practitioner. But we're doing it to nurture the relationship. And I tell you, compliments, giving compliments, appreciations when we're in this peaceful passion mode are really heard. And, there's a joy, and it is actually orgasmic.
Great. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Go ahead.
And I was going to say, in a peaceful way. That's why we call it peaceful passion.
The peaceful passion, because say more about the peaceful aspect to that.
Well, most people think of sex as being very rambunctious and rowdy, and, that great sex is a lot of activity and movement. And this is everything slowed way, way, way down. And it's really getting to the essence of the connection between the two of us.
Yeah.
And it can be done without intercourse as well, but it involves a sexual connection.
Yeah. So in that sense, I imagine it could be helpful for same-sex couples as well. If there's I love this image of running the energy and using it as an energizing practice, because somewhere along the line, I'll go ahead and self-disclose here, Diana, I've got the impression that when we engage in sexual activity too frequently or too intensely, that jing, the essence, the life force can actually be depleted. And so, I've heard of the studies of, holding off orgasm and all of that. I can see you have a response, and I can't wait to hear what it is. But I need to know this information for my own work with couples and for my own relationship, because when there's a lot of stress, it almost seems like that's when my husband would prefer to have more sex. And I think, oh, it's going to deplete his energy, or he's sick, he should save his jing. And he's like, that's not my experience. And so this is a conversation we have, and we play around with what works best in terms of exchanging that energy. So I'd love for you to share a little more of your wisdom around that from all these years of your own personal and professional experience with it.
Well, yeah, you hit on a common belief, that sex is depleting. However, it's really more that ejaculation can be depleting, okay? But the engagement and the sharing of sexual energy, and even the release of sexual energy through the whole body, is actually, here's your word, empowering. It's actually an experience that's enlivening, and it is healthy. What we do, Peaceful Passion, is healing. It's healthy. It's exciting. It's an aphrodisiac in and of itself, and I can't imagine our lives without it. And we've been doing it for decades now, and you can tell I like it.
I can totally tell. Your body's kind of swaying as you describe it, and there's definitely, I feel an invitation, I feel an exhilaration on my end of exploring it. And is this part of the free gift that you're sharing with our audience today, the daily practice?
Well, not exactly. Do you want me to describe the gift?
Yes, please. Describe the gift, and then we can direct people to your book to get the daily practice, or?
No, actually, okay. All right. So, yes, to get to the daily practice, Peaceful Passion is described in our book, and I'm sure there's a article, essay on my website about it as well. Okay. In order to learn how to do Peaceful Passion, Richard and I believe that the couple needs to really explore sexuality in quite a lot of depth. So certainly we don't encourage only 10-minute times together. We encourage longer times together. The giveaway is our CD. We have a CD called Lessons in Intimacy. I'll show you a picture of it. Maybe it'll show up. It's backwards on my screen, but I guess you can probably see it.
No, it's perfect. Yes, perfect.
Lessons in Intimacy, the Lover's Touch. And what it is it's a guided home play practice. We call the assignments we give to couples, we call them home play. So at our workshops, between group sessions, which are not sexual or naked, we send them back to their rooms where they can get sexual and naked, and we call those home play assignments. So this is actually an hour-long audio experience where you're guided through a home play assignment. It's very touchy-feely. We invite the couple to look into each other's eyes, to touch each other. It's not exactly Peaceful Passion. There's pleasuring of her, there's pleasuring of him, with encouragement, bringing them into their sex center, bringing them into their heart center. And it's a really cool thing. And so what we're offering is, if anyone writes me and says you heard me on this show, on this conference, Master Series, and you'd like your free gift, I will send you a link to a digital download of this CD. Yeah, that's wonderful. You generously shared that with me last week, and I had the encouragement and aspiration to do this before our interview, and taxes happen, and late nights at work, and a big storm, and it's so interesting, in some ways everything happens for a reason, but I so know those obstacles that couples go through, because I had every intention of doing that. And I even said to my husband, we've got this, let's at least do 5 minutes, we can get started, and I don't know if you would advise that, just to do little bits, even if you don't have that full hour, but to at least start that daily practice of focusing on it. Any response to that? I do. I would say yes. Go ahead and spend 10 minutes. In fact, listening to you, I'm thinking that's what we really need to produce, really, are 10-minute things, because it is hard to schedule an hour. It's challenging with kids and work and families and everything we're doing, which is why when Richard and I decided to do a daily practice, the most number of minutes I could come up with that I felt I can do 10 minutes, 10 minutes, I can commit to that, and because it's daily, when if we miss a day, it's only a day. If it was a weekly commitment or something, you miss it, then it's another whole week before you get around to that longer commitment. And if you miss that one, and there's couples who haven't had sexual relations for weeks or months, sometimes years, it builds upon itself. And so if you start off with a short daily connection, that can be any number of things. I mean, our peaceful passion, to me, is the epitome. Is wonderful. It's, we both love it. It's fantastic, but it doesn't have to be the only thing that someone commits to.
Right. I really hear that invitation to bring the focus back on the relationship, particularly the embodied sense, the realm of sexuality, and how it can be a very energizing and uplifting, enlivening experience. And as you said earlier in the interview, really tapping into that other dimension, that higher power, if you will, that other source. I heard that as a source to gain the energy, which to me feels like so much of the time clients get caught in that vicious cycle of, I don't have time, we're not going to have sex, and then the tension builds, and then I'd rather just get my Facebook time in, or and then we can watch couples grow further and further apart, or that sense of, oh no, just a few minutes instead of the email, to actually turn toward, make that bit of connection toward my partner, and have that, and explore that way, that power in partnership, that equal exchange, that it can be energizing instead of depleting. Not just the sexual act or the ejaculation, but the whole relationship. I think sometimes the story that gets embedded in couples is that it takes too much work. And what I really feel that you're offering us today in a very refreshing and bright invitation is, what have you got to lose? Try this a few minutes, and I really hear that sincere appreciation that you have for your beloved, that you have a daily 10-minute practice, and you have this history of your own discipline through Aikido and different practices of meditation where you have that discipline. But I also hear that forgiveness of self and that softness of, oh, if we miss a day, we just pick it up the next day. So in that, there's a very human quality to what you're explaining. And my soul is dancing around in joy as I hear you, because I have a very disciplined approach to life. I have the great intention of, decades ago, I almost entered the more contemplative lifestyle. And I met this amazing man, and my body said, no, something different is on your path. And so for me, it's about how to bring those two together, because I do desire a greater spiritual connect. My soul is yearning for that sense of empowerment and being a force for good. And I'm in a marriage, and I'm a mother, and I'm a daughter-in-law and a daughter, all those other roles. And as you said, to do that with devotion, as a devoted daughter, as a beloved wife. So anyway, you can probably hear my appreciation for you. And as we wrap up our interview, my last sentence stem for you, Diana, is one thing I appreciate. And you can say that about your work or your beloved or your life in general. One thing I appreciate.
Well, right now what comes to me is that one thing I appreciate very much is you, Amy Elizabeth. Oh. And that your enthusiasm and your hard work and putting this series together and working with all the couples that you work with and giving of yourself in those ways is what the world needs. There's one funny thing, I'm sure you've noticed this in your work too, that you might have a couple who comes to see you quite regularly, or I don't know if they go on Skype or if they show up, but you work with them very regularly, and they can show up on time and they can spend an hour with you, but they can't find that time to spend with their partner. Right. I have actually told people to go home and be together rather than work with me sometimes.
Wow.
I sometimes will do Skype calls, and I'll say, okay, you're both there, you're both talking to me, we're going to end this session 50 minutes early. And here's what you're going to do for the next 50 minutes, because there's something in all of us that resists going to this powerful, there's your word again, yes. that love is powerful. Love is all powerful. And we put up so many resistances to it. We're afraid of it. We're maybe we've been hurt by it before, maybe we don't know, or we're confused. And so, yeah, suddenly Facebook we have time for that, And so, yeah, I'm delighted and I appreciate this. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you after you have listened to the Lessons in Intimacy CD, and experienced it. Actually listened to it together, not separately.
Right. It's on our date night. It's our wonderful to-do list. So thank you so much for that, Diana, and for sharing your wisdom today. With that, we will close our intentional interview with a bow, just as we started, to bookend our time together. And may it be so that we all find the time to cultivate what matters most. Mahalo nui loa.